25. Over a barrel. Over a barrel lands at the very bottom of my ranking because frankly, it fails on almost every level of the pony scale. Instead of subverting colonial tropes, the episode leans right into them.
New characters. What absolutely did not work was the decision to reframe the very real and sensitive history of genocide and theft of land issues between Native Americans and white settlers into a pie fight. The attempt to explain to kids in the most tone-deaf way imaginable that just sharing was never a viable solution.
I'm just dumbfounded because the way they go about it is all wrong.
And just simply threw the excuse that there is nowhere else to go. You have all of Equestria to go to.
While I see how this episode could be offensive, the way I see it, it isn't teaching the wrong message, and it's a decently fun episode.
Over a Barrel is easily one of the most controversial episodes of all of My Little Pony. Rightfully represent these subjects. But I personally think Over a Barrel is the GOAT, and I'll explain to you why. It's a perfect portrayal of conflict, a well-seasoned narrative, and actually pretty funny. Overall, I think this episode is highly underappreciated. However, this opinion may not be the same as others, as many complain about many things in the story which we will get into as we go. Let's just get right into it. We can see a train going somewhere and Applejack in the caboose, reading a book to a tree called Bloomberg, and we can then see Rarity complain about having to sleep in the same room with the rest of her friends. And Applejack just explains to Rarity, emphasizing how much she cares for the tree. And we can see Applejack talk like if the tree's her child when Rarity says that she treats it like if it's her baby, which is just really funny, especially when afterwards Rarity makes this statement.
Goo goo goo! It's Whittle Rarity who's all saddy-waddy.
Anyway, after Spike gets mad at Rainbow Dash, we can see everyone in the train preparing to go to sleep, and we get to another funny scene which is actually really popular in the community.
Hi, you asleep yet? No, are you asleep yet? If I was sleeping, how could I have asked you if you were asleep? Oh yeah! When we get to Appaloosa, you think we'll have to carry that heavy tree all the way from the train to the orchard? What tree? You mean Bloomberg? No, Fluttershy. Fluttershy's not a tree, silly.
What's going on?
Rainbow Dash thinks Fluttershy's a tree. I do not think she's a tree.
Did you say she was a tree?
No. Well, yes, but not exactly.
You know, she's not a tree, right?
She's not a tree, Dashy. I'd like to be a tree.
Oh, for Pete's sake!
Would you all be quiet? No!
This made me laugh so hard when I first watched this. Afterwards, we can see Spike deciding to sleep with Bloomberg, as the main six are being pretty noisy. The next day, we can then see a buffalo stampede, and the buffaloes start attacking the train and the ponies controlling it. They fight back, and we can see some buffalo make a stack as a little buffalo tries to get on the train, which Pinkie mistakes them for just doing tricks. And Rainbow Dash tries to confront the little buffalo, which ends up failing as the buffalo tricks her into crashing into a sign, and proceeds with the buffalo taking the caboose with Spike and the tree. And I just want to mention how Spike actually gets up to the window to show he's there, when we can see there isn't any way to climb up or a window to begin with. We get to Appaloosa and we get introduced to Brayburn, Applejack's cousin. He shows her and her friends the whole town, and shows them the apple orchard as well. Applejack and her friends then get to explain to Brayburn the problem with the buffalo taking their tree and Spike. We can then see Brayburn petrified with this face just because they mentioned the buffalo, which is something people like to complain about, making it seem like the buffalo gave him PTSD, but honestly it's just pretty funny to me. We then see Brayburn explain how they genuinely need the orchard to live, and how the buffalo had been trying to get rid of it. We are introduced to the start of the conflict, as these buffalo have been trying to get these trees out of their land, which will leave the Appaloosans poor. This will, however, be expanded later on in the episode. We get to Rainbow Dash trying to save Spike after she got bamboozled by the little buffalo. It turns out Pinkie Pie went down to save Spike as well. Comically, as Rainbow Dash says that her presence will make them get caught, they end up being caught by the buffalo. As the buffalo charge at them, we can hear Spike telling them to stop, and it turns out the buffalo are cool with dragons. We get to the Buffalo Lands, and we then learn that the buffalo took Spike by mistake, and they even treat Spike like an honored guest, as they're cool with dragons. As Rainbow Dash tries to leave the buffalo who bamboozled her, who we now know as Little Strongheart, explains that they were trying to take the tree on the caboose, not Spike, and that the settler ponies planted an orchard over their land, and they can't run on their traditional stampeding grounds anymore. We then meet their chief, Chief Thunderhooves, for a clear explanation, and after him continually saying that his father stampeded on these grounds, and his father before him, and his father before him, etc.
My father stampeded upon these grounds, and his father before him, 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 and...
I think they get the idea, Chief.
We then learn that they forcefully took their stampeding grounds, where they did their stampeding tradition to run the path every year. Rainbow Dash demands a conversation with the Appaloosans, as she is on the Buffalo side for taking the orchard. As we will see, this won't really work. The rest of the main six are on their way to rescue the rest of their friends, but it turns out they're back with Little Strongheart to talk. We get into a heated argument as Applejack argues they cannot move the trees as they need the trees to live, and they have nowhere else to plant them. This is actually a conflict-ridden right, as we can see there is no correct side here. Both sides have good reasons to keep the land. The settlers need the land to live, but the buffalo need the land for tradition. Most stories just have the conflict have a bad side and a good side, but I can honestly appreciate how this episode portrays conflicts realistically and differently. And I can assume you guys can start to see the parallels and the obvious allusions this episode is making with it, which is what people are upset about. But honestly, I don't see anything wrong, as this take on the situation feels pretty believable and real. We then get to Pinky's solution, which turns out to be a song about sharing, which Chief Thunderhooves and Sheriff Silverstar both agree which was a bad performance. Then Thunderhooves tells the settlers that if they still have the trees there, they will flatten the orchard and the whole town. And Sheriff Silverstar says that they will be ready to fight for it. We can then see the town preparing for the war, definitely not up for the opportunity to just talk things over. As we can see this guy grunt when Twilight tries to convince him. We get to the buffalo as they prepare for the war. We can see them sharpening their horns, and can we just talk about how aesthetically and narratively different this episode is to other episodes? We get a realistic and different kind of conflict where no side is right, just really cool imagery, which really shows how these two sides are going to war, which I will give props to. This episode evokes a feeling that isn't present in other episodes. There is always another Sisterhood of Social, another Lesson Zero, another magical mystery cure, but there is no other episode that invokes the same kind of war and Wild West feeling that this episode does, which just really pops out and showcases its brilliance. The night before the war, we can see Rainbow Dash attempt to convince Chief Thunderhooves to think of a better option than a fight, but Chief Thunderhooves thinks it's the only option. We then get to the buffalo and settlers are prepared to fight at noon. Turns out the buffalo actually decide to stay back and not start the fight, which gets interrupted with Pinky continuing her song, which enrages the buffalo to actually attack instead. The buffaloes start destroying things and the settlers start to fire their pies at them. A settler starts to ride one of the buffalo and a buffalo bumps into an anvil behind some hay. A buffalo gets hit with a pie, which makes it crash into a clock tower, causing it to fall. We can see Chief Thunderhooves aiming to charge at Sheriff Silverstar, as it seems he will lose. As he runs out of pies, a slow motion scene occurs where a pie is thrown at Chief Thunderhooves, indicating the defeat of the buffalo. As the buffalo are sobbing with the settlers in reverence, a piece of pie enters the chief's mouth, and he turns out to really like it and exclaims that he has a better idea, to let them keep the orchard in exchange for apple pies. We then can see the settlers cutting a line for the buffalo to pass with the pies, and it's interesting because it looks like the buffalo basically got what they asked for as well, as their tradition was to run the stampeding line, and we can now see a line for them to pass through, and also got a bonus as they can now eat apple pie now. I've seen people call this solution dumb, but I think it was just a gag not meant to be taken seriously, especially when we add that we can see a line being cut out for the buffalo to stampede as well. We also got great world building with a new town and new pony and buffalo designs, which look awesome and very fitting to the episode in my opinion. There's also cool dynamics like with Pinky and Rainbow Dash being together in this episode, which makes their pair more familiar as we've seen it before in Griffin the Brush Off. I heard someone say this episode labeled the buffalo as aggressive, but we can see the buffalo resisting the fight at one point, which shows these buffalo aren't portrayed as evil as people say. What makes this episode so great is the fact that it tackles a subject that many shows aren't willing to tackle: conflicts. And the episode tells us that the best way to really solve any conflict is through communication and understanding, which is a moral if we all applied in our daily lives, we would probably have fewer wars and less arguments and more peace in the world. What also makes this episode so great is just how well it portrays the conflict as well as the war aspect, which was done really well. I give both of these elements a 10 for this episode, and yeah, that's pretty much it for my thoughts in this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe as it will motivate me if you're interested in this channel, and please be respectful in the comments.